Well, you see on your screen a list of the photos of these amazing parent leaders who are going to be joining us as panelists. And as I created this slide, I started to list, their affiliations, and their affiliations are too many to to list to get everybody in on this slide. And they wear different hats at different times, depending on who they're representing and who they're speaking to. They are active leaders in their families, in their communities, in local organizations, in state level work, and in national groups. And so I just have them listed here by the state they're joining us from because it's hard to sum it up otherwise. But we can have them each introduce themselves, but I will just briefly say I've had the pleasure to work with each of these parent leaders in different ways, and what they bring to the table is always so impressive, and things I would not have thought of, and things that need to be said and shared and understood, and I'm always grateful for them. So I'm very pleased to welcome Sanaa Sharrieff from North Carolina, Tecoria Jones from South Carolina, Anthony Queen from Michigan, and Kara Georgi from New York. And my coworker, Arthur Argomaniz, will be facilitating this panel. So Arthur, do you want to start and have folks introduce themselves while I try to make sure everyone is indeed a panelist?
Yeah, that works. Thank you so much, Kaylin. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Arthur Argomaniz. I've been with CSSP for 10 years, and my work has always centered around really supporting parents and communities in achieving the changes that they want to see in early childhood systems change efforts. So that means a lot of different things, but the most important thing that it means is I get to work with amazing parents like the 4 you're going to hear from today. I've been working with a few of them as part of a national network, the Parent Leader Network, for the past 5 years. And I will be asking them a few questions. I really encourage folks to use the chat to share any of your thoughts, ideas, or questions. We'll try and get there, and then I'll ask one of my colleagues that are helping to host to check the Q&A for me, because it might be too many windows. So if you see any good questions there, please let us know. So I want to give folks a chance. I see Tecoria and Sanaa on right now, and then once I see our other panelists, I'll ask them to introduce themselves. But I want to ask Tecoria, do you mind introducing yourself first just a little bit?
No, I don't mind at all. It was good afternoon on the East Coast. My name is Tecoria Jones. I am in Columbia, South Carolina. I do recognize myself as a parent leader, and I really have so much to appreciate around CSSP's work and the protective factors. There's so much goodness in there, and I'm just really also excited to be here on the panel with other recognized parent leaders that are doing the work every day, and this is exciting.
That's perfect. Thank you so much for that brief introduction. Sanaa, do you mind jumping in?
I don't mind at all. I don't know that I'll be as brief as Tecoria. Hey, Tecoria. My name is Sanaa Sharrieff. I am a parent leader, the co-host of the New Neighborhood podcast, sponsored by CSSP. Also a parent leader with CSSP, serving on the steering committee. This is my final term. So sad and so excited about the work that's being done, and excited to be here as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Sanaa. And Kara?
Thanks, Arthur. It is such an honor to be with dear friends and colleagues who are doing this work in the Uplifting Parent Voice. My name is Kara Georgi. I'm the mom to 2 incredible children who are the why that led me to Protective Factors and this body of work of being a parent leader. It was recognizing that we needed help, and then people seeing something in me that I didn't see in myself, that led me to advocating in my community, to then moving to the state level and the national level, and now today working at the Children's Trust Fund Alliance as the lead senior associate of parent partnerships and If you'd asked me years ago, would I be here today? I would have told you were crazy, but I can't imagine doing anything different, because every parent has a voice and a story to share about the difference that services can make for their communities, and we need to give them the space and opportunity to be able to share that.
Okay, thank you so much. And we got to note that Anthony, it won't be on camera today, but Anthony, if you want to briefly introduce yourself, please do.
Yeah, I'm Anthony Queen. I am from Grand Rapids, Michigan. I've been a part of CSSP for the past 7-8 years. Parent leader, different organizations. I'm glad to be here.
Great. Thank you so much, Anthony. And that profile picture serves you well. You look good in that blue tie. So we have a few questions, as I mentioned, and really wanted to start. Maybe we could go in the same order for this first question as you all introduce yourselves. But just really big picture, how has learning about the protective factors and kind of living into them affected you in your own lives? How do you take this home? How does it really impact the things that you do with your families? How does it really think about, like, how does it help you think about the way you spend your time and your effort as a parent and as a parent leader in your community? Tecoria, you want to kick us off?
Sure thing. So much of my parenting experience before I became familiar with the protective factors was just kind of see if this works. And my experience as a child, the ingredients I had to see if it worked, they weren't that good. There were some ingredients in that recipe that I knew I didn't want to use with my own children, but I didn't have any significant replacements. It's like, how do you make a cake if you don't have flour or eggs? Like, how do you make it? How do you become a good parent if you don't have an understanding of what you need? And that's what the protective factors were for me. I had done some of the extracting of the things I knew I didn't want to do as a parent, but I didn't have anything to put in there. And the protective factors gave me things to put in to those spaces, and they were reliable, and they were true, and they felt real, and they work, and they provided for me as a parent touch points and real information that made sense around the decisions I had to make and how I should go about being the parent I wanted to be, right, with my children. Not just not being the parent I knew I didn't want to be. I needed to know how to be the parent that I wanted to be. And the protective factors helped me out with that. And I try to share them. I try to kind of, when I'm talking with others, kind of refer to them. And maybe it's not a whole protective factors commercial, but that's we might talk about concrete strengths in a way that's like, this is a real, like, you really do need those things, and help people understand it's not just that there are real things that people need in order to do their best job. And the protective factors help you be a good parent if that's your goal in life. All right, Sanaa, it's your turn.
I don't know how you expect me to go after you, Tecoria, with with that well-spoken response. Stop it, okay? But I agree. Learning how to be the parent you don't want to be is a lot easier than learning how to be the parent you want to be. Growing up, I always heard, well, parenting doesn't come with a handbook, mostly as reasoning for not doing things better, right? And the protective factors for me lets me know that there are ways to do this better. There may be ways I learned to do it, or maybe things that come to me off the top of my head in times of high stress, specifically concrete supports in times of need. I'm a parent of twins who are, they're neurodivergent. They're both on the autism spectrum. They have lots of big feelings very often. And my big feelings don't matter in those moments, you know? And when learning how to identify or look for the type of supports that we need, and realizing some of the barriers, for example, of long wait lists or places that can serve parts of what they need, but not other parts of what they need, learning how to really lead into strong advocacy for both myself and for the children, for example.
Thank you so much, Sanaa. I hear you both talking about both protective and also even for parents, like some of these promotive, the promotive factors behind that, right? People often will leave out this idea of promotive and protective factors. That's always really called me when I hear about this work, and I hear you both lifting that up as well. So thank you. Kara, do you want to jump in?
Sure. For me, they are truly my lifeline. On my best parenting days and on my worst parenting days. The protective factors were the thing that they kept on telling me was so important when I was doing community work, but I was terrified to talk about them. And then I was like, there's this training, I've got to go. And they're like, it's 4 days. You don't want to be away from your family 4 days. And I was like, but you keep telling me this is so important. Why wouldn't I want to go do that? And it was the best thing I could have ever done for myself and my family, because learning what protective factors mean in my everyday moments gave me the tools to figure out how to pause, take a reflective moment. What protective factor am I leaning into most right now? And then how do the other ones come into play? Because protective factors aren't in isolation of each other. And so what it's given me is language to use when I'm stuck. They've literally become kind of my stepping stones of, once I get the one, okay, I really need some social connection time with some positive people right now. Okay, now let's see what's the next step. And it's like an onion, and you get to unpack the layers. And it's given our family language to use as we're just trying to navigate life in general, and figuring out how do we be supportive of each other. And it's to the point that now I'm the girl who won't stop talking about them. And even my husband will frequently say, in some of my not so glamorous moments, which 5-finger thingy is that? And reminds me of the protective factors of just checking in and making sure that I'm taking care of myself. But I would say the biggest takeaway that I had from that training was the importance of asking for help. I was not good at that. And that training taught me that being able to ask for help is a sign of strength. And I never viewed it that way before. And it also taught me about what we heard earlier in the presentation, that giving someone else the opportunity to offer you that help and meet that need is actually a blessing and a great gift. And it's a way that we can keep on building our protective factors. And so I can't thank the opportunity for being able to, one, learn about them in the first place informally, but then being able to really better understand it in those everyday moments. I wish every parent could be gifted that opportunity, because that's how we can help families move from just surviving every day to finally feeling like we can thrive a little bit here and there.
Yeah, I love that. And I see a lot of folks in the chat really resonating with the 5-finger thingy. I think a lot of folks might have some of these frameworks that may not folks in our lives understand, but they don't fully get it. And so they sometimes mix it up. It's sometimes hard to explain the work that we do to folks, but they get the essence, to your point. People get it. People understand it. It's in real life terms. And I think that's really, I'm hearing that from all of your answers as well. Anthony, do you want to jump in and talk about how the protective factors have really affected you and how you've been able to embrace them?
Sure. I agree with everyone on the panel who's already spoken. 1000% agree with them. I'm gonna veer off just a little bit. What I'm trying to teach my son, and what I'm teaching other minority parents, is, because I have a black son, a black child, I'm teaching him, like, I guess it would be 5A, and that's critical thinking. Twice in his short little scholastic career, he was judged differently than the other children. And after we came up there and spoke to the school and everything, got that all straight, like, no, you're not going to put him in there and judge him like this. I spoke to him in the car afterwards about how he's going to be judged differently because he is a black child. And I don't only want the protective factors for me, but I want them from him, and I want to be able to translate that to him. And I explained to him why critical thinking is so important, because you're going to be judged differently. And, you know, you just starting out in his career, like I said, in his scholastic career, but twice within his 6 years of school, it came into play. So when I'm talking to fathers, mothers too, minority parents in general, I tell them about that and how that critical thinking is so important because, I mean, in reality, we're going to be judged different. He's going to be judged different. Can't run from that. I'm one who accepts things as it is, but we can overcome that. So that's one of the things I will add to that. And I agree with what everybody else said as well.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony, for bringing that perspective in. You know, and I really think, you know, it leads us into our second question really well to really think about. I know you all as amazing parent leaders, you shared a little bit about, you know, what it means to you all in your family and your own parenting. But I know you do this work, as some of you mentioned, with others, right? This isn't about, like, yes, absolutely, you want to embrace it and live it, and you want to share it, right? That's part of, you know, how do you integrate this into your work? So I'm really curious if you could share just some of the things that you've seen happen as a result of, you know, the parent leadership kind of with that protective factors frame in your community, your state, your organizations. I know some of you do national work, some of you also do lots of local work. So what are some of those results that you've seen as a result of this leadership work? And maybe we could start with Kara and Anthony and then come back around to Tecoria and Sanaa, if that's okay. Start in the middle.
Sure. So for me personally, once I learned about it locally, it became a dedication to building the space that we never had as a family for future families. And we built an incredible play space that is grounded in protective factors and the concept of play for families birth to age 8 to be able to come together and build this everyday language. So that's my local piece, as well as I really felt it was important to infuse this in the schools. And so I literally have a beading activity that I do where I meet with administrators of the school and we tie a bead tight to a string and represent that commitment to the child. And then we put a protective factor bead on to, as we talk about moments when that family and those children needed protective factors, and we tie it off at the other end with another bead to represent our hopes and dreams. And we use that as an inroad to talk about how can we bring protective factors into schools? How can we bring community cafe conversations into schools? And it's been super powerful. And doing this work across the state and nationally has given me the opportunity to access tools and resources I don't think my community would otherwise receive. So I'm the one that when it's the end of a conference, I clear the resource table and pack it up and bring it back and infuse it everywhere because I want to share those tools and that information. And then as I've done the work nationally with the Children's Trust Fund Alliance, when we recently were working on a book club around the book, What Happened to You by Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey, we infused protective factors into that study guide for parents. So that way they can help to look at protective factors as a way of not just looking at trauma and seeing it, but recognizing that there is a solution in protective factors and there is power in that. And so just finding intentional everyday moments and ways to infuse it has been what my dedicated mission has been ever since I've learned about them, because again, it's how can we give it in many different opportunities and spaces, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing. And there was a question, just real quick, if you want to respond to Lauren, the protective factor bead, if you want to just briefly describe that activity one more time for folks in case folks want to borrow that.
Absolutely. So it's literally taking a string with a pony bead and you tie a string super tight to it to represent your commitment to the child or children. And then you go through thinking about each protective factor. So for example, thinking about a time when that child or that family had to be resilient. What did that look like? What were some of the concrete supports? And you talk through each protective factor and slide those loose, because protective factors are always moving. And then at the end, you tie the bead off tight to your hopes and dreams for the child. And then it's kind of like a little keychain takeaway to remember protective factors.
Love that activity. Thank you so much. Anthony, do you want to talk about a little bit about some of the results of parent leadership in your community and how the protective factors have really influenced that?
Sure. For the lot of the minority parents who I work with, especially fathers who aren't in the primary household, I talk to them about how this is still important. About they don't have that mirroring that a lot of other people might have. They didn't see that growing up, so they don't know about these protective factors. And one of the things that they like, and I always get complimented on, is I talk to them about reality, not the white picket fence, not what's in the book, but what they face on a daily basis. And I try to weave that in to the conversation and tell them how it can be used and the reason for using it. And they just respect that. They're like, no one's ever talked to them before. They don't know none of these terminology. So again, everything I do is about being rooted in their reality, not in my reality, not in my suburban reality, but where they are. Because if we're gonna really meet parents where they're at, we have to, use the language and that they understand that they can relate to. Or else all we doing is just like checking the box and they walk out and smile and get their little gratuity and they on their way. So I try to give them stuff that's really that they can take with them wherever they go, and stuff that they might want to pass on, and to their family members, to their children. And I talk to them about these protective factors, and it don't have to be called that. You can call them whatever you want. But as long as it's the gist of what it's trying to show you is relayed to you and your family, that's what matters. They like that I don't talk to them like, smiley face and everything's going to be okay. That's not their reality. So I talk to them about what they face on a daily basis and how they can make their family, their community, and their neighborhood not only just exist, but grow. And, a lot of times they have some strikes against them. That's okay. You just got to deal with what they're dealing with and try. Every parent is a universal truth. Every parent wants better for their child. But it's not always going to be the same road. It's not always going to be the same vehicle. So I try to talk to them about what they can use and what's at their disposal to make that happen.
I love that, Anthony. Thank you, especially, helping people to find their own meaning for these protective factors, putting it into their own words, if that's communities, if that's individuals. So really love you that you lift that up. Coming back to you, Tecoria, and then Sanaa.
Sure, I really appreciate having some time to think about this, because that's a big responsibility. And as a parent leader, one of our biggest goals is to continue that upliftment and amplification of other parent leaders, and the protective factors helps us do that. One way that I see the protective factors regularly is when I do cafes with Be Strong families. The protective factors are always central to the work. There's a deep insight to what they are, and the questions are centered around them, the protective factors, in a way that helps, sometimes complete strangers find connections around things that matter, and can assist them to be the kind of person that they want to be, right? Or can help them feel more validated and more in touch with their experience and not just affected, right? Because like Anthony, I see a lot of the community that I connect with is a community that is a community of the data, right? Of child welfare and the justice system and all these systems. So there's a lot of distrust and uncomfort. But when you're talking about protective factors, you're helping folks know what they can do and what they can accomplish and where they can make connections with the things that are already going on around them. And that's that's leadership, right? That is knowing where you are and who you are and the value in those things. So I would like to see more protective factors. I wish protective factors were on every billboard, milk carton. I wish there was a PTA requirement, like the Catholic Church does. Every PTA should have a protective factors announcement. Like, I really think that, like Anthony said, parenting, everybody wants their child to do well. That's the point of parenting. And so getting folks that support to do that is important. Try to model when I'm out with my kids and we're having a discussion. I'll try to use my words if I'm talking to someone who's out with their child or their youth, and they're maybe saying something like, "Yeah, well, I can't wait till you're 18 and you get out of my house." That's a oh, maybe there's something I can say here. Maybe there's a conversation I can have that kind of introduces, and it kind of starts with well, man, when you were 18, how smart were you? Because I know developmentally we don't quite get there till our mid-20s. And that's protective factors. That is understanding. And protective factors is understanding. And it helps us be leaders, and it helps us show other leaders what they have in them.
I love that, lifting up, especially to Korea, this piece around for those families that have taken a lot of their autonomy has been taken away. The protective factors really offers a way for them to really take some of that control and really see within their control, rather than like dictating, here's the 5 steps that you have to follow. No, these are 5 protective factors that you can embrace, and it means something different to every family. So I love that. Thank you for lifting that up. So now, do you want to finish us off on this question?
But would not be so elusive. Hello. Yes, well, I realized the original question was, what have I seen happen as a result of parent leadership in my community, state, or organization? And I hear everyone bringing it back to the protective factors. I love this huge push to get everyone aware, whether it's providers from the state level all the way down to getting parents to understand the importance of the protective factors. Um, I've seen the conversation happen a lot in a high fidelity wraparound conference recently, just getting providers really to understand how to build on family strengths as far as building that resilience, figuring out where our children are developmentally, where we are developmentally as parents. And what I've also noticed is that there is a strong tie in to those things and how our communities are thriving or not thriving. And then an increased ability to kind of build community based on meeting people where they are. Yeah.
And I hear you, Sanaa. Before we get to this last question, talking a little bit about, I guess it's more than, a survey about how we're doing as an organization or a system. It's more than a individual parent kind of like, what did you think? You talk about like parent leadership and partnership beyond engagement. And so I don't know if there's anything else you would like to say about that. And then again, we'll come back to other folks for our final question.
Well, I know that there's a lot of interest in parents as partners, whether it's through Family Resource Center Network or supportive agencies or even through the Parent Leader Network. I know here in the agency that I belong to, with the Guilford Parent Leader Network, there is a big push to rebuild specific neighborhoods with specific input from families who are a part of that neighborhood, instead of coming in and saying, well, look, this is what we're going to do. We're going to throw money at it and be happy. Okay. Parents who are actively at the table saying, well, this is what's not working in the community. This is where our children are not being supported. Parents as partners is a very important concept. Nothing about us without us. So you don't just want to come in and try to do all these things and you have no idea how you're disrupting or how you're affecting families. And yes, I agree. It's more than just a survey, checking boxes and just letting people know, we want to know what you have to say for now, and then we're going to pull out, and kind of leave things discombobulated. So I believe that building trust, building rapport with the families, and strongly getting families involved is extremely important, and I'm seeing more of that.
Yeah, thank you, Sanaa. I want to. We have maybe a little over 10 minutes remaining, so I want to both ask a question. And then offer if there's any kind of closing reflections, if you want to include that in your response. And I think maybe now we could go backwards just for some, to give folks, again, a little different order of the conversation. So we'll start with you, Anthony. And I think some of you touched on this. What would you like to see happen to reach more parents with these messages about strengths and protective factors? And even this idea that we kind of just started getting into around parents as leaders, right? Sometimes in their own home, sometimes across their community, like, that they could continue down that path. So, and then again, a closing reflection if you have one. Anthony, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. What I would like to see is, there are so many times where you hear meeting parents where they're at, But then you just go, they do the exact opposite and don't meet parents where they're at. It should be meet parents where they're at, comma, as long as it's cool and it's okay for us. If you're going to reach some of the families that really could benefit from these programs, you truly do have to meet them where they're at. A lot of times they've been marginalized, picked over, criminalized, and all because their zip code is right here. And so I try to take what I try to do when I'm out there and speaking to people and organizations, try to bring that bridge together and let them know it's okay that you don't have to be this or have to be that. But these parents are willing to adopt some of these programs and some of this language, but it has to be based in their reality and not yours. Not yours that's comfortable, not yours that's okay, not yours that is going to keep you protected all the time. That's not what these families are facing. So why would I listen to you if I know you saying all this, but as soon as I go home, it's going to be all this? One of the most powerful things I've ever done in this work as a parent leader is when I spoke about ACEs to these African-American men. So long, they couldn't even describe what was affecting them. And it was generation after generation after generation. And that's where the strengthening families, protecting factors, how you blend that all in and show them like there is a way out of this. It's not going to be easy, but nothing in their life has ever been easy. And like I said, they always want, like, they don't want to give up on themselves, but they want better for their children. And again, that's the universal truth. And if you could just show them that and show them that you're there, like not always to, you need them to fill out a survey or to do this, but just talk to them. And that's why I think I was so accepted by a lot of minority fathers and men, because I just talked to them. And I think that's powerful. Even to this day, I can call some of them up now and be like, hey, I need some people to go to Lansing and do it. And they'd be like, man, anything you need. Because I just treated them like I wanted to be treated, not how I didn't do the golden rule, I did the platinum rule. I treated them how they wanted to be treated. And that was the whole thing with my relationship with fathers and male role models. And again, I didn't excuse them because a lot of them aren't in the primary household, but that's not, that's not an okay to not be involved in the child's life. That's even more of a reason that you have to be involved. So I like where I'm at. I like being able to talk to these men and to these fathers who have been marginalized again and again and again, and show them that, it's possible. It's not easy, but it's possible.
Yeah. Thank you, Anthony. I hear a few things that I would just, again, echo, that this work is relational, that this work is about, really being partners with and listening, where folks, not only where they're at and where they want to dream, like you said, kind of like what they envision for their lives. And then this other piece around, understanding, ACEs, generational trauma, like these things are heavy. And that on the other side of that, what you all are talking about is one thing that one of my elders always says is, as much as, yes, there is generational trauma and there's communities that carry that, families, there's also generational healing and strength that we could tap into. And I hear you, Anthony, really at the essence of it, talking about that. So I really appreciate you for sharing those thoughts. So we'll go to Kara and then Sanaa and then back to Tecoria as we wrap up.
For me, it's remembering relationships can be messy. So often we want things to fit in tidy little pretty boxes. And that is not partnership. That's not relationship. And so I would encourage everyone to think of just one parent and start there. Where's that one parent who you consider to be the squeaky wheel, the one who you consider always to be the problem or the one pushing up against things? Because the reason we're doing that is because we have a message, a voice we want to share. It's not because we want to make your life harder or more miserable. We truly just care about our kids, our community they're growing up in. And so why not start using protective factors and strengths-based theory to flip the way that our communities are being responsive and start looking at it through the lens of not what's wrong and how do we fix families, but how do we make sure that we're building opportunities for protective factors to grow and flourish? Because again, it goes back to some of the early remarks. It's the environment that we're in. And so I would strongly encourage everyone to start the journey. And as Anthony said, looking at the relationships, people will go the extra mile when they feel valued, when they feel seen, when they feel like they belong. People know in my community, if I suddenly stop showing up, it's because I've become a checkbox. I'm filling your grant proposal saying that you had a parent in the room because you know I'm a parent leader. And I would also just remind everyone as a final kind of word that being a parent leader and being called that bears a heavy responsibility, because in our community, when we struggle, other families look at us and say, if it's that hard for you, there's no hope for the rest of us. And I've had numerous families say that to me. And so while it's great to be recognized as a parent leader, there's a lot that goes with that. And so I just want to caution you to that, because we need to be checked in on too, even though we're doing great work and doing amazing things. We need to be poured back into, and we need to make sure, most importantly, if we're doing real authentic relationships and partnership, that it's not just how can we work, but how do we also invest in the actual people to make our families be able to build their protective factors and to look at things in a positive way.
I love that. Thank you, Kara. This idea of, it's hard enough to pour from an empty cup. How do we overflow each other's cups, right? How are we doing that in a really good way? As parent leaders, and I would also say encourage staff to also, think about as they do this, as you all do this work. Many of you are parents as well. I know I've learned a ton being able to work with parent leaders about how I'm raising my own kids, and I have to embrace this as well. This isn't just my day job, and I take this hat off. Similar to parent leaders, we're here that often. So take that parent leader hat off when you walk away from your computer, or you clock out for the day, whatever it might be. So I really love that. Thank you, Kara, for lifting that up. So now you want to jump in?
Yeah, I appreciate that as well, Kara. And Anthony, your message rings so true. I was thinking, I saw someone in the chat say parents need to be paid. I wholeheartedly agree with that. Our insight and lived experience is valuable for this work. I totally agree with that. I also believe that if people continue to lean into parent leadership as a career pathway, it could possibly break some cycles, specifically the cycle of poverty for some parents who have a lot to bring to the table. Giving parents the opportunity to bring more parents to the table and not kind of relying on the token parent, so to speak. We don't want that, because one person does not speak for everybody. All of our experiences are very diverse, very unique, and specific to our individual families. And so encouraging more voices at the table so that we each can learn from each other and build our strengths together, similar to what Arthur just said about learning from parent leaders as it relates to his family. But in an ideal world, the protective factors would be on the sides of buses. They would be on that little extra receipt that you get when you go to the grocery store. They'd be printed on the shopping cart. They'd be on all the walls in every place and space that you go as a parent, and maybe in some places that you don't go as a parent, but that you just go so you can spread the word. In the ideal world, they would be everywhere so that people can remember that there are tools to be strong as families, to be strong as parents, and to help support other parents and families and build strong communities.
Thank you so much, Sanaa. Sanaa, I hear you also lifting up a little bit of the terminology that the Parent Leader Network uses that's related to a document that is really foundational to that work, called the Manifesto for Race, Equity, and Parent Leadership.
Yeah, thanks. The protective factors are so important, and they're so usable. Oftentimes I only see the protective factors when they're in like a prevention program, or there's like a little bit of, maybe I might need some parenting help, but there's not much protective factors when a family's already been impacted. And I would really love to see more protective factors brought in that secondary prevention line. I still think of it as prevention because the data says often when you got one impact, you'll get another one. So it's still prevention. You can still prevent that next level impact by doing this work, by understanding how you're already living some of the protective factors and how you can help yourself do more of that. So I'd really love to see more access to the protective factors in different areas of prevention. One thing I'd really like to say is that what the protective factors do is really help people. As you understand, back in the day, they used to think we got sick because of miasma or bad air, right? We just had no idea, right, about viruses and bacteria, and we had no idea. This is, it's the bad air. And sometimes in parenting, we're all just kind of breathing that bad air. But when we know what it is, when we know there's some things in there, those protective factors can come in and say, oh yeah, this is I yell too much germ, and here's the protective factor that can help you with that, right? It really does do more of that specific caring than, well, maybe if you get lucky enough to get asked to join this limited time opportunity for 6 weeks, maybe if you can do all that and set it all up, then maybe you can get some information about like why it should be everywhere, right? And as far as parents as leaders, I really have to say, and now I've been in a lot of spaces where our energetic response isn't appreciated, right? We're parents. I don't wear any other hat besides who I am and what I know. I'm Tecoria Jones. I have 6 kids. I represent community as it is. I know the family that is living in situation. I've been that family. It's in my blood, right? It's in my breath. It's in everything that I know and say. So because we don't wear those hats, because people like me, when we don't say come in as a title or something, it gets a little dicey sometimes. But if you understand that we are here just like you are here, we're on the same team, we want the same best for our community, right? That's why we're doing this work together. Our proximity gives us a power that you aren't familiar with. They didn't teach you about that in school. They didn't teach you how being proximate to a situation gives you all this insight and depth of understanding. We have that power in our proximity. And there's no title to say, so there's a little bit of a translation situation with parent leaders and sometimes organizations. But we are proximate, we are powerful, we translate, we navigate, and we appreciate, like Anthony was saying, what the folks have been through, what they're dealing with, what life is like. We know that, and we can love to that. There's no adjustment for us because that is us. We are leaders and parents in a community, and we see all that, and we can love into that space right there. And that's our power, that's our strength, and that's what makes us special. And you should have a couple of us around if you want to do the good work.
I love that, Tecoria. Doing this work for a few years now, I've seen other fields really take this and embrace this kind of, community-driven model. If it's, gang intervention work, again, I mentioned I'm from Los Angeles, so familiar with a lot of gang intervention work, and the folks that could do that the best are the folks that have lived that life, right, and are really wanting to make a difference. The community health worker model that a lot of folks are familiar with, right? Who are the best folks to be sharing information around healthcare, navigating those systems, and what, folks can be doing to help support their children. Those same parents who live in that community. And so this parent leadership approach that you all are talking about, and having parents, really support that work and embracing them is key. And so I love this path that Sanaa talked about, that you all really touched on, that this field is really on, and really exciting to be part of and witness to that. You all as parent leaders, thank you for sharing today. And thank you to everyone that's participating for really just for listening, for embracing these stories, and for doing the hard work that you all do on a daily basis, both at home, in the communities you work with, and professionally. So thank you so much. I think we may have a question in the chat that we could answer offline, but Caitlin, I want to see if you want to wrap up there, or if there's anything else that I missed.
Thank you so much. We will wrap up there. I do see the question in the Q&A about resources. We can respond to that in writing because we got to keep moving through our agenda today. But this panel was amazing. I think everyone can walk away from here feeling like, yes, we got to get out there and do more with parents, reach more people, get on the sides of those buses and billboards. So thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you, Arthur, for facilitating and for all the work that you do to grow and support parent leadership. This has just been amazing.